Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the Mom on the Verge podcast, where I aim to help you improve your sense of joy, purpose, and meaning in this life. We will talk about a lot of different ways we can do this, but ultimately, we'll be working toward finding our way back home to ourselves and remembering that even in the most challenging times, peace is only a breath away. I am your host, Katie Farinas, a mom, nurse, and yogi on a mission to improve mental health and build community in our world. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the show. This is another episode of Mom on the Verge, and I am your host, Katie Farinas. Today, we are going to be talking about interoception, which I know sounds like a really big and scary word, but I promise you it actually has a pretty simple meaning. And it's a really powerful practice. But before we get into that, I wanted to mention a few things. I don't know about you, but where I am in the Northeast of the United States, it has been freezing, like 20 degrees, high winds. I live in a lake community. All the lakes are frozen over. The kids are playing on the lakes. And in New Jersey, that's where I am. That's not all that common. So it has been so cold, but because of the cold, I have been loving even more my new yoga offering, which is a warm candlelit slow flow. And it's so cold outside. And we go into this class and I turn the heated floors up to 86 degrees and I turn the infrared light on and the whole studio is just lit by candlelight. And we move through this juicy, slow flow that is so calming and so, I don't know, feels safe in that space. So if you are anywhere in the Marlton, New Jersey area, I highly encourage you to come. It's Monday nights at 6:45 p.m. at Balance Planet Yoga in Marlton, New Jersey. I will put a link in the show notes to their website, which is how you would sign up. And it's also a great way to get a feel for what it would be like to take that aligned within program that I offer, which is a combination of yoga and coaching, Dharma coaching. You'll get a feel for my style as a yoga teacher and about the topics that I think are important when we're talking about coming home to yourself and finding your soul's purpose. Because even in my yoga classes, I theme them every week with that concept in mind, connection to body, mind, and soul, a connection to your soul's purpose, and just a sense of inner peace and groundedness and intuitive knowing. So we work on all of those concepts in my coaching program and always in my yoga classes. And so you'll get a great feel if you come to one of those classes. You'll also meet just really fantastic people. The studio is just a haven for fantastic people. We really draw the most loving, non-judgmental, beautiful people. I don't know what else to say. So you will be in wonderful company if you come. Okay, so now on to the interoception piece. Interoception, like I said, sounds like a big fancy word, but its meaning is pretty simple. It is basically your ability to detect and interpret signals that come from the inside of your body. So let me say that again. Your ability to detect and interpret signals that come from the inside of your body. You do this all the time without knowing it. So a great example of interoception is your sense of hunger. When you're hungry, your body sends you a signal from inside of your body. You say, oh, that's hunger. I'm going to go eat something. Same with thirst, right? Your body sends you a sense of thirst and I'm thirsty. I better drink something. Pain is another form of interoception. You know, if you're in pain, depending on what it is, right? If you're touching a hot stove, you're going to pull your hand away, right? If you have a headache, maybe you're going to take some Motrin, right? You're going to do something about this signal that your body is sending to you. But our bodies are talking to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They never stop communicating with us. But for most people who live primarily up in their head, they really only detect a very small portion of the information that our bodies are sending to us. And of the amount that they actually detect, they interpret an even smaller portion of what our body is communicating to us. So there's all of this wisdom that's happening inside of the body that we are not giving ourselves access to simply because we haven't been taught how to, right? We haven't been raised in a culture that tells us that your body has its own language that you need to pay attention to. We've really been primarily taught to understand and interpret, detect and interpret the information that comes from up here in our brains, right? We hear the language, the nonstop ticker tape. Well, it's not a ticker tape, that's something different, but the nonstop tape that plays in our minds. We've been really conditioned to pay very close attention to that and to use that as our source of information and to make decisions and to interpret the world and perceive the world through that mechanism. And interoception is a completely different pathway to understanding yourself and to understanding the world and to receiving information and interpreting that information. It is its own completely different language than the language of the brain. And if you listened to my episode last week or read my newsletter, or maybe it's 2 weeks ago now, I will link it in the show notes, but it was all about the heart and the brain and how the heart's electromagnetic field is actually infinitely larger than the brain's electromagnetic field. And so even though we have been taught that this is where we should think from up here in our heads, we actually should be thinking from our hearts. And that is closely linked to what we're talking about here, this interoception, because our hearts don't have a language like the language I'm speaking to you right now, right? Like the language of English in words. It has a different language, and we have to learn that language. And that takes some time and skill. And interoception helps us to know where we are physically and emotionally. So just like when you're hungry, that is an uncomfortable sensation in your body, but you know when you understand that sensation, you say, okay, I'm going to eat something. And then your body sends you a different internal signal, which is satiety, right? It's that sensation of fullness. Hopefully we're eating slow enough and with enough awareness that we are stopping when we just feel full and we don't get to that overstuffed, uncomfortable feeling. But it's that signal that says, okay, something's out of balance, something is off kilter and needs attending to. You are suffering in some way. You interpret it, you do the thing your body's asking you to do, and then you get a pleasurable sensation, hopefully, afterwards of this satiety. Same with thirst, right? Or same with attending to your pain. And these are all things that we know and understand and have experienced many, many times, often on a daily basis in our lives. Temperature is another great example. So your body will tell you you're too hot. And so you'll take off some layers of clothing or change your clothing or go to a cooler environment, and vice versa. Your body will tell you you're cold. And so you put on some extra layers or turn up the heat or grab a blanket. Okay. And then you get that nice sensation like, oh, I feel so much cooler, or, oh, I feel so much warmer, right? Our body's talking to us. The other thing that you can learn to tune into when you get really good at this interoception thing is prana, life force energy. That's what we call it in yoga. Prana is your life force energy. And it is the energy of the creative intelligence of the universe. That can be, you can call that the universe, you can call that God, you can call that whatever, the divine, whatever word makes you feel comfortable, that you resonate with. But we all have it running through us. It is the animating force of our lives, right? When that energy leaves us, that is when we are no longer souls living on this planet. And you can feel that energy. And that energy moves around our bodies all the time. It can get stuck in places, which can also often cause pain or discomfort. It can tell us stuff. It's part of our intuitive powers. And you can tap in to that energy when you learn this interoception part. But the other really big piece of interoception, and what we're going to talk a lot about today, I think is probably the most important piece for a lot of people, is interoception allows us to understand the signals, detect and interpret the signals that our bodies are sending to us from inside about the state of our emotional regulation. So people who are good at this and have practiced this skill, and it is a skill, they're more emotionally regulated. They feel safe in their own bodies. And a lot of that is because they understand the signal, right? So if you were hungry and you said, okay, I don't know what this is. This is so uncomfortable. I don't know what it is. That would make you really anxious, right? And you would want to get away from that feeling. Um, it's the same. So when you start interpreting these other signals, you might have sensations in your body. You might be experiencing sensations that are uncomfortable, but you don't know what they mean, and you don't know how long they're going to last, and you don't know if they're going to get worse. And so you choose to tap out. Maybe you start scrolling on your phone, or you start binge watching some TV, or you start eating not because you're hungry. You didn't get that hunger interoception. You just know that eating is pleasurable. And so that will hopefully take away that feeling, right? We kind of turn to these other vices, if you will, because we have this unpleasant sensation in our body and we want to get rid of it. But the sensation is the formation of an emotion. It's an emotion that's in there. It's your body's way of speaking to you and saying, hi, I'm suffering a little bit. There's something going on here that's making me feel really uncomfortable, and I need you to attend to it. But it's hard to attend to it if we don't know how, right? If we don't understand the signal. If first of all, we're not even feeling it, and many of us who are very deeply disconnected from our bodies are not even feeling it. Or if we are feeling it, but we don't understand what it means. Or if we're feeling it, we understand what it means, but we don't know what to do about it, right? Any one of these scenarios is going to cause it to escalate. And we want to prevent that, right? We want to live in a state of equanimity, which basically means that although we are going to have fluctuating emotions, and some are going to be pleasurable and some of them are going to be displeasurable, we live within a range of those emotions where we're never going so far low, sinking, into depression and anxiety, or so high that we're in this state of euphoria that is non-sustainable. We want to live in that state of inner calm and peace where we can feel all of our emotions, the desired and the undesired, with a undercurrent of peace and calm, and knowing that we are safe in ourselves and that we can come back to a more desired emotion by doing the things that we need to do. But what often happens is our body sends us signals, and because we either don't hear them or don't know what they mean, it escalates out of control. So for example, maybe one day you think you're humming along just fine, and then all of a sudden somebody does one little thing and you fly into a rage, right? And you feel it. Here's some interoception. You feel heat starting at the bottom of your belly, rising up all the way through your chest and into your face. And all of a sudden you are in a rage, right? That sensation, that heat, that rising heat, that is interoception, right? But you have now not interpreted the signals all along. And so there's this outburst that occurs. And afterwards, you don't feel great about it, right? You feel bad. Maybe you flipped out on somebody. You feel out of control. You don't understand what happened. It's very confusing. You want to prevent that from happening again, but you don't know how. We want to prevent that. And that's what tuning in to your body is going to do. Another example would be, you think you're doing okay. You think you're fine, but one little thing happens and you start crying hysterically. And you're like, what the heck? Where did that happen? Where did that come from? Like, why did that happen? I was just fine. But really, you weren't just fine. You just really weren't hearing the subtle signals along the way that your body was sending you. And now we have escalated to the point of a puddle of tears, right? Been there, done that many, many occasions. I really resonate with that one. So when we learn to really tap in, feel those signals, understand, interpret them, and do what we need to do, we prevent those extremes from occurring. And people who are great at this are more emotionally regulated. They are more intuitive. They live more in the present moment. They have great access to their intuition. They are live in equanimity more, that kind of, range of emotions that feels good and feels safe and makes it easy to return to a more positive emotion. If you think about even like a toddler, let's say, and how they throw tantrums, right? When they're in that tantrum, they're offline, right? You cannot, anyone who's had a toddler, who has experienced a toddler having a tantrum, there's really no reasoning with them. There's no rationalizing with them. There's no negotiating with them. The little access the toddlers have to their frontal lobe is completely gone. And they're just letting the emotions out of their body. Okay. And it's scary for them. It feels just like you as an adult. If you have an outburst, like, this is scary. It feels very out of control. And it makes it very hard. It takes a lot longer and a lot more stress and strain and emotional upheaval to get back to your center. So if we can prevent that, if we can stay mostly in that range of emotions that feels comfortable, when we go a little bit up or a little bit down from our center, we can more easily come back because we haven't gone offline, right? We haven't gone so far off the rails that the return to center feels like a Herculean task. And that's why we feel more emotionally regulated and present and safe and intuitive and grounded. And it's why we can then start to feel kind of generally, when you feel safe in your body, you start to feel safe in the world because your body is your home. And so if you don't feel safe in your home, how can you feel safe in the world? So this is a way of beginning to come to safety inside the only home you will ever have in this lifetime, your body. So how do we do this, right? This is all great, Katie. Fascinating information. How do I learn this new language? Which, by the way, I tried to come up with a really fun term for your body's language, because I love things that are easy to remember. So, but I couldn't come up with one. All I came up with is your body's language. I tried a few on, they didn't feel right. So if you're more creative than me, which I can pretty much guarantee that you are, and you can think of a fun term to mean your body's language, then please send it to me. You can email it to me, Katie@momontheverge.org, which I'll put in the show notes, or if you're listening on Spotify, you can just comment on Spotify. But if you come up with a really good one, if there's multiples, we'll have a vote. But if only one of you sends something in, then that's going to be the winner. And I will announce it on the podcast. I'll use it in my yoga teaching. I will put it in my newsletter, and I, of course, will credit you for the word. But I want to come up with a fun word that represents our body's language. So let me know if you come up with something. But this language that our body speaks is not in words, right? Our body doesn't speak to us in words, and words are the way that we have come to understand language. It's the only language that many people think exists, but actually interoception is a form of energy language, and it is energy that is speaking to us, that prana that I was mentioning earlier, and it does not use words. And so when we're trying to learn it, we are trying to learn a whole new language. And just like if you were trying to learn Spanish or French or any foreign language that you don't currently speak, you're going to need a lot of repetition, right? That's what it takes to learn a new language. It is starting off small and easy and performing a lot of repetition over time. It is getting, increasingly more, your ability to get increasingly more complicated happens over time. And you're going to make mistakes, right? You're going to maybe use an incorrect word in a sentence. You thought it meant this, but actually it means something else, right? Or you are going to not have access to a word, right? Maybe you're speaking, you're having a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden you realize, wait, what's the word? What is the word for that in this language? And that's totally normal, right? When you wouldn't judge someone for that. You would not think that, they're not capable of learning the language. You would think they're learning, and this is the process of learning a new language. And so similarly to that, when we're learning this body language, it's going to take time. It's going to take repetition. There are going to be times where you don't know what the signal means, just like maybe you don't know what the word means, or maybe you interpret the signal wrong, just like using the wrong word in a sentence when you're learning a new language, right? You think that this signal coming from your body meant that you were sad, but actually it meant that you were anxious. And so you now know that, right? Because in retrospect, you'll be able to look back and say, oh, I thought my body was trying to communicate sadness to me, but it was actually trying to communicate anxiety to me. And just like learning a new language, you are going to learn it faster if you work with a teacher, like a coach, like myself, who's going to really help you to interpret those signals. And you're going to learn it faster by immersing yourself in the culture, right? So if that were learning a different language, we would go to that country and immerse ourselves in the culture and the language of that country. For body language, we're going to immerse ourselves in our bodies. And so that means engaging in somatic practices like yoga would be a great example, but also meditation is another great example. And we're going to do that today. We're going to do a meditation that helps you detect and interpret the signals of your body. But the biggest thing you need to know is that over time, it will become easier. And before you know it, if you consistently work at it, just like a foreign language, you will be effortlessly communicating with your body the way someone learning a foreign language begins to effortlessly speak and engage in that language. It's just a matter of time, of taking time and doing the work and having the practice. So there are 3 stages of feeling, and I will go through them. You don't need to remember the terms. You don't need to remember the descriptions I'm about to give you. I just want to just kind of give you an idea of these 3 separate stages and how we move from one to the next. So ideal feeling is a state of interoception where you are very sensitive to everything in and around you, right? You are aware of those signals and you are able to interpret them. You are recognizing and accepting your emotions. Every little subtle change in your body can be perceived. You are very empathetic. You're able to empathize with others naturally. And you're able to give and receive love. It just flows in and out very easily. You can't help yourself, right? You just have this overwhelming sense of being loved and of loving. And you have an undercurrent of bliss. So that's this kind of idea where, yes, you're going to experience all of the normal human emotions, but you're going to experience them not at the edges or the extremes, but at a beautiful state of equanimity where you are always aware, even if you are maybe really angry or anxious or sad or one of the, what I would call undesired emotions, right? Non-preferred emotions. Even in those situations, you still feel this undercurrent of safety and calm and peace and knowing that you can return home to yourself, right? You might need to do some things to help yourself out to get there, but that you have the control. So just like hunger would make you very anxious if you were hungry and you had no access to food, hunger doesn't make most people, the lucky ones, anxious because we have access to food, right? So we feel this uncomfortable sensation. We know what it is. We know what to do about it. We do the thing, we eat, and then the sensation goes away. So same here, when we experience the uncomfortable sensation, we can interpret it. We know what our body's trying to tell us. We know what to do. And then we return back to that state of equanimity and peace and inner calm. So that's your ideal feeling state. All the way on the opposite end is the distressed feeling state. So when you're in this state, you are in a state of inner conflict. You are not feeling peaceful inside, right? You often are feeling really spun out and disconnected from yourself. A lot of times you are suppressing emotions in this state. You may struggle to make big life choices and decisions because you only have access to your mind, right? And our mind is really a small fraction of how we should be making any decision in our lives. And so if you only have access, if we're talking about all the information that exists being 100% of the information that exists to make a decision, and you're only using your brain, you only have access to about 20% of the information that exists. And you know that, right? Because you can do all the researching, you can talk to 100 different people, you can think about it 6 ways from Sunday, you can write lists until the cows come home, but you are still not able to make that choice. And that is because there is a part of you that knows you don't have all the information because the information lies within your body and you don't have access to that at this moment. Often this is where our past disappointments and experiences of rejection that have not been resolved prevent us from or make it hard for us to give and receive love. So you may feel that. You may feel like you are not lovable or loving, and that there's something wrong with you because of that. And that is emotions that have not been dealt with. And you may also feel numb. That's another way that this comes out, where you really only feel the most extreme emotions, but everything in between just feels kind of blank and numb. And you may be wondering why. Why do I feel like that? And that is this lack of connection to your body and the ability to soothe yourself, to soothe your own suffering. And so we want to be able to do that, right? We want to be able to soothe ourselves the way, if you're a parent, the way you would soothe your child. And that's what this is all about. And the last state is the in-between state, right? So we'd preferably like to be in the ideal state. All the way at the other end is the distressed feeling state. And then in the center is the healing state. So to move from distressed to ideal, we have to move through healing. We have to reverse the distress state. And it happens in stages. And the first stage is just being able to recognize those internal sensations. So that, like, recognizing that they're occurring, that they're happening. And so that's where those somatic practices or something like meditation or body awareness practices like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where you tap into all of your senses, that's where those things come in. They are creating time and space to bring awareness to your body and to pay attention to the subtle signals that it is sending you. And so that's where you would begin. And that's where we're going to begin today by doing the meditation that we're going to do together. Once you can actually detect that there are signals occurring, then you want to be able to recognize that the sensation creates an emotion or is coming from an emotion. So you detect a signal and then you recognize that this is coming from an emotion, and we need to investigate at that point. I will do another mini-sode on a technique that Tara Brach uses. If you're familiar with her, she's a Buddhist spiritual teacher and she's fantastic. But she uses this technique to help people in their own suffering. And a big part of that technique is investigation, right? It's looking at the feeling, the emotion, the sensation with a sense of curiosity, without judgment, and with open receptivity to understanding what it is. This awareness, though, if we just bring awareness, we feel it and we bring awareness to it, it allows us to acknowledge the emotion. And that's what an emotion wants. It wants to be acknowledged. So, and when it doesn't get acknowledged, then it gets bigger. And that's where we land when we're in the rage state, or we're crying because we have no idea why. It's because an emotion was tugging at our pant leg for a while, and we were not feeling the tug, or we were feeling the tug and just not doing anything about it, not paying attention to it. And so the emotion started tugging harder and harder and harder until we are at one of these extreme emotions that we really don't want to be at. So I also like the analogy of thinking about this like the health of your body. If you think about something like diabetes, just as an example, we all know that type 2 diabetes, well, maybe we don't know. I'm sorry. As a nurse, some things come naturally. Type 2 diabetes. Okay, so this is the type of diabetes that people will often get from lifestyle choices, right? It can be impacted by things like obesity, by lack of exercise, by diet choices, things like that. And so we don't want to end up with type 2 diabetes and then have to, you can actually, certain forms of type 2 diabetes, you can actually reverse through diet and exercise and weight loss and things like that. So we don't want to get to diabetes and then have to reverse all the way back. That sounds really hard, right? Do you know what sounds easier? Eating well, exercising, stress management, weight management, all along the way, so that we don't have to get to that extreme point and get ourselves back to a set point. We can stay within the set point. Same with heart disease, right? We don't want to have clogged arteries or have a heart attack or have congestive heart failure. We don't want heart disease and then treat the heart disease, right? We ignored everything along the way and now we have heart disease. And so we have to go back and treat it. Can it be done? Absolutely. People do it all the time. But is it ideal? Is it what we would prefer? No, right? We would prefer to not have the heart disease and not have the diabetes. And that's what we're talking about here. By detecting, recognizing, interpreting, and then doing what we need to do, we are essentially practicing preventative medicine for our inner state. It is preventative medicine for our internal well-being. So once an emotion is detected, interpreted, accepted, and acknowledged, it will go away, right? It will subside. The tugging on the pant leg will stop. And we will feel so much better. So that is why interoception is important. But now we're going to actually practice it. We're going to start with that first step of becoming aware that those sensations are present. And maybe you'll be able to feel them and know what they are right away. And some of them you will, absolutely. Some of them you will right away know what they are, and they may not even be related to an emotion, right? It could be just like, oh, I have some shoulder pain I didn't realize was there earlier, or, oh, my breath is not very deep today. My breath is kind of short and fast today. And so some of them you will be able to recognize right away. Others will be more subtle, and that's okay because, like I said, this is a practice. This is learning a new language. And just like learning a new language, it is going to take time. So we're going to begin this meditation. For this particular meditation, I do think it is easier to interpret these signals if you are laying flat on your back, like in Savasana. So you can lay on your bed, you can lay on the floor, you can lay on a yoga mat if you have one. If that's not accessible to you for whatever reason, totally fine. You can sit in a chair, you can sit in easy seat, you can sit wherever you want. If you are driving, obviously this needs to be paused and taken up later. I encourage you to do this meditation every day for the next week or every other day, whatever you can manage. So once I'm done this recording, I'm going to go back and figure out exactly what minute the meditation starts, and I will put that in the show notes. So you don't have to listen to my whole speech beforehand. If you want to just practice the meditation as frequently as possible, you can just repeatedly go back to this episode. You can save the episode. I don't know if you know that episodes can be saved. So you can save the episode and then you can just fast forward directly to the beginning of the meditation. So With that being said, I ask everyone to take a comfortable position where you won't be disturbed for about 10 minutes. Okay. Once you have found yourself in your comfortable position, either seated or lying flat somewhere, and I do recommend that you take the time to become comfortable. So if that means, if you're sitting somewhere, if that means maybe putting a pillow behind your back to support your back, if you're sitting in easy seat on the floor, maybe elevating the hips with a cushion, a pillow, a block, if you have a yoga block. If you're lying on your back, maybe your neck needs a little support, or maybe you place something like a pillow underneath of your knees so that you take a little pressure off of your lower back. Just try to get as comfortable as you can possibly get for the next several minutes. And we're going to begin just by taking some deep breaths. So inhaling through the nose for a count of 2, 3, 4, and exhaling through the mouth for a count of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, inhaling 2, 3, 4, and exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's do that one more time. Inhaling 2, 3, 4, and exhaling 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to move to our bodies, just feeling the overall weight of our bodies. Maybe if you're laying down, you're feeling the full weight of your body as it rests on the surface beneath you. If you're seated, maybe you're feeling the weight of your sits bones as they press into the surface beneath you. But you're feeling either way, whether you're sitting or you're lying, gravity pressing down on you, pulling you down and connecting you to the earth. Just relaxing into that sensation, knowing that the earth is here to support you, that you don't need to hold yourself up, that you can be held in this time, in this moment that we spend together by the beautiful Mother Earth. And now begin to let your mind wander to any sensation that comes up. So you may naturally notice that there's a sensation in your body that's calling your attention. Maybe you thought you were comfortable, but now that you've been here for a moment, feel something that's calling you to readjust. Maybe you have pain in a certain part of your body that comes up frequently. Tension. Maybe you're noticing tension somewhere in your body. Or maybe, I hope, you are feeling really relaxed and you're feeling an overall sense of relaxation in your body or in a certain part of your body. But wherever you feel that sensation, just place your attention there. And I would invite you to try to leave your attention there without naming the sensation and without judging the sensation. So we don't have to call it anything. We don't have to call it pain or pleasure or burning or tension or even relaxation. We just are aware of it. And we also don't have to judge it. We don't have to say we don't like it, we wish it wasn't there, we wish it would go away, that it means something about us for having this sensation. Again, we're just becoming openly aware of the sensation. And linger on the sensation, breathing into the space where you feel it. You can imagine as you inhale, the breath passes through that section of the body. And as you exhale, it comes back out. And allow your attention to be a salve for any unpleasant emotions. And allow your attention to be the portal to deepening any pleasurable sensations. If you can imagine looking up at the night sky and how vast and open the sky is, allow your awareness to be that open, to be that receptive to what's happening in this moment, at this time, in this place in your body. There's no need to force anything. Just let your attention rest on the sensation. Over the next several minutes, I am going to let you be in your own body, in your own space. I will be here watching the clock. But what I invite you to do is bring your attention to any sensation that calls to you. And after spending some time there, just like we did with this first sensation, paying attention to it, breathing in and out of it, allowing it to be without naming it or judging it, you may notice that the sensation starts to lessen, to quiet, to maybe even go away. And at that moment, I want you to scan your body for another sensation. So this is almost like a little game of hide and seek, or a game of seek and find, where you are looking for a sensation. You are going to the sensation. You are spending some time with it, giving it some loving attention until it starts to loosen its grip. And then you are going to move to the next sensation that arises in your body. When we're doing this, it's not uncommon for some difficult emotions to arise, for us to feel maybe anxious or impatient, to question ourselves, to wonder if we're doing it right. Just remind yourself, if that happens, that these are just feelings and you can let them go. And go back to the body scan. Go back to seeking and finding sensation in your body and spending time with it until it loosens its grip a little bit. I will call you back when it's time. remembering if your mind wanders, to just return it back to your body. Just search the body. Seek and find whatever messages it's trying to send. We'll begin coming back to the room, beginning to take your attention more external than internal by hearing the sounds around you. And when you feel ready, gently opening your eyes and taking in the sights that are around you. Taking a moment just to be still. Rest in calm awareness. And see, taking survey of yourself now versus how you felt before this meditation. And see if there's been a loosening, a grounding, a sense of connection. You did a great job, my friend. You sat through that meditation, were laid, and tried to listen to your body's language. You did a beautiful job. As a reminder, I will put the minute that this meditation started in the show notes so that you can go back and redo the meditation. I think it was about 10 minutes. And you can just save this episode, as I mentioned, and then go back to the minute the meditation started and just take 10 minutes to be with your body, to listen to the language that it's speaking to you, and start to learn it. And also, as a reminder, hit me up with some fun words for your body's language. What are we gonna name that? If you love this episode, if you do feel more peace, calm, and connection, if you have a better understanding of body's language and why it's important to know it, please rate and review the show or send this to somebody that you think could benefit from hearing it. I really do want to spread these messages as far and as wide as I can because I so deeply believe in their benefit in our lives personally and in the lives of our friends and family and in the whole world. So I am counting on you to help me get there Podcasts really are discovered. A big part of the way they're discovered is through ratings, reviews, shares, and follows. So I would deeply appreciate if you would do one or more of those things for me this week. I hope you all have a beautiful weekend, and I will talk to you next week.